Hi, everybody. I'm Dougall Fraser, and welcome to the Heal Your Life podcast. I'm your guest host for today. I'm also a Haith House author, the author of the book Your Life in Color, and the co-creator of the Oracle deck Angels and Auras, the Oracle. And we have a very exciting conversation today. Not only do we have someone that I super look up to, who I think is incredible, but is also a dear, dear friend. And we are going to dive into some very exciting topics. So without being all kinds of fancy, let's just get right to it. Radleigh Valentine is here with us today. Radleigh, how are you?
I'm good. I still think there should be a warning. If you are listening to this broadcast, be prepared for silly language and ridiculous behavior. This podcast is rated NC-4.
You know, it's funny. I was nervous this morning. I mean, I talked to you 70. I know, and I knew you were going to respond that way. I talk to you 74 times a day. But
at least
I get to ask you all of the questions that sometimes I'm politely not asking you because I don't want to fangirl out.
That we had this whole list of things we were not discussing. My father, who's an alien from the Sirius star system. I thought we were not discussing the witness protection program. We're not discussing this stuff, right?
We're discussing all of the things. I'm in control of the questions. You have no idea what I'm going to ask, although you probably do because you're like sort of an amazing psychic. You know. Right. So let me ask you a question. So I want to begin with, first of all, you are a prolific writer and creator. I don't even want to count how many decks and books you've written because I did text you last week. I texted Radleigh because he was like, oh, I've got a deadline coming up. And I said, you have another deadline coming up? I have already run out of things to say. How do you do that?
Do you know that if you Google the synonym for prolific, one of the words that comes up is stupid?
No, that is not. Don't get into self-criticism.
Workaholic.
Right now.
No boundaries.
No, I see an artist, a creator, a healer, a teacher. That is what I see when I describe you as prolific.
Very sweet.
But I do want to ask, before we get into one of your newest decks, which I absolutely adore, can you talk a little bit about your origin story with tarot?
Oh, sure. So, my origin story is kind of interesting because to make it not so long, I'll make it short and just say I showed psychic tendencies as a child. I started talking to angels really early. Religion didn't work for me. Just didn't. Lots of good reasons. So I went looking for alternate spirituality. It was natural for me because of the way I was raised and my mom and stuff to go to angels. Being raised in Knoxville, Tennessee in the 80s was not the mecca of progressive thought that many have heard. And that's a joke. And so there was not a lot of places to learn about anything that did not involve the Bible. And so there was America Online, which existed before you were even thought of, and where you would log on and there was you had a modem and it was like 28.8 baud. I remember was really fast. Right. And you'd log on and it'd go, you've got mail. Right. And they had these little chat rooms. And I would go to these chat rooms and there was one called Angel Speak. And there was a teacher in there. Her name was Carla. She was my first real spiritual teacher. She taught about angels, but she also was infatuated and loved tarot. Now, tarot or tarot, depending on what part of the country you live in.
Let's just pause with that for just a moment. Because this morning I was going back and forth. I'm a totally weird person, so I switch depending on my mood. What is your preferred pronunciation?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to suggest to you that I did that to you. I ruined you. Because
you heard it here, kids.
In the Southeast, it's
tarot. Put that on my website.
Oh, right. You can go ahead and mark it. It's like, I'll even put it on my resume. I ruined Dougall Fraser. I also, according to many tarotists, ruined tarot, but that's a whole other story. We're gonna get to that. Yeah. So in the Southeast, it's tarot. In most of the country, it's tarot, and in other countries, I go back and forth constantly. There is no logic to which one I use at any given particular moment.
Right.
So
we're in a chat room. We're in a chat
room. She's really into tarot. At that time in that moment in time, angels and tarot were considered to be strange bedfellows. People would not put those two things together. In fact, if I give myself a little tiny bit of credit, I think I was the first person to put those two things together in a mass kind of way. Some people had done a couple of very simplistic tarot decks that had angels on them, but I think I put those two words together in a lot of ways, which is not something that I would normally just say out loud, but I'm going to anyway.
Well, that was sort of the trend at the time. I mean, if you were a numerologist, you couldn't blend that with astrology. If you followed one belief system, you couldn't blend it with another belief system. Even when I was starting, it was very, very strict of what you could and could not do.
Well, there was a whole stay in your lane thing.
Yeah.
I think. But anyway, that's where I first got interested in tarot in my mid-20s. Curiously, ironically, there's a lot of foreshadowing in my life because people who don't know me may not know that I was a certified public accountant before I was a spiritual teacher. So my first accounting job was for a publishing company. And the first tarot deck I ever laid eyes on was a handmade deck that Carla made and cut out of construction paper.
Wow.
And brought with her.
She designed them as well?
Huh?
She designed them and the imagery as well?
Yeah, she did. She also didn't like some of the harsh images and stuff like that. I do think that there's a thing that's true that people of my age and younger, where we don't need that harsh stuff anymore. And in fact, it just gets in the way. This is one of my favorite things is your loving, playful, kind approach to your teaching. And specifically when it comes to tarot cards, it can be sort of spooky feeling, or I think it makes people a little bit nervous. And I am curious about, my perception is that you've always maintained the integrity of the cards, the integrity of, the way that they're taught and how they're described. But you bring something to the table that's really unique and special, where it's very approachable. The doors feel really wide open, and you can really feel your intention in that. So I don't need to say anything else. That was it. Thank you so much.
We'll
That's
talk about
literally
that a
what
bit.
I'm going to have engraved on my tombstone or on the side of the urn that you and my sister are going to take to Disney World and spill accidentally after I'm cremated. I mean, literally, you just exactly said what I would want anyone to say about my work in tarot.
Yeah.
Is that I wanted it to be not scary. I wanted it to be approachable. I wanted it to be easy. It can be as complicated as you want it to be, because a lot of people get into tarot and then down the rabbit hole they go. I live in a rabbit hole. I get it. I love that stuff, but you don't have to.
And you did mention that I'm quoting you earlier. You said that some people feel like I ruined the tarot. So talk to me if you I love to get spice. Let's get ready. I love to get spicy.
Oh, now we're gonna spill the tea.
I want to. The tarot tea.
Yeah, the tarot tea.
So tell me some of the backlash. That would be a good
podcast. The tarot tea would be a good podcast. So, so people didn't like it that I softened things. They didn't like it that I changed the word death to release, because the death card doesn't mean death.
Right.
They didn't like it that there's no person laying face down in a pool of blood with 10 swords in their back. They didn't like it that there was no devil card with people chained up. And it was like, tarot's 600 something years old. I mean, it was the dark ages. It was not a good moment. I mean, it was, people were illiterate, and so maybe we needed the devil to represent materialism and being locked in your ego and your addictions. Maybe we needed that, but we don't need it today. And we don't need a death card for something that literally doesn't mean a physical death. It means an ending.
Well, and also you're helping the reader. A lot of people I know that listen to this podcast are readers, people that do readings for other people. And I used to spend years and years and years trying to talk clients off the ledge, saying that is not what the death card means, I promise. And then you have to redefine the imagery for them.
Well, exactly. And the tower card where someone's falling to their death while the lightning strikes the tower and it catches on fire. It's like, first of all, it's melodramatic.
Totally.
The Tower card, which I do not call Tower, I call it Awakening, but that card in and of itself is I'm sorry, not Awakening. That's Transformation. Awakening is the Hanged Man, another card that people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like for me, I would like get those cards and I'd be like, oh, okay, so the card, and like try to hide it, shove it under another card so that they can't see that one, So anyway, so these cards here, what they're and it's like, so it's not good for the reader. It's not good for the person getting a reading.
Yeah.
Because now they're off path. Now we're not connected to the divine. Now we're not connected to source. Now we're not connected to the story. Now we're connected to fear.
We're having an anxiety attack. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which isn't going to do any healing at all. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go straight into it. So your new deck, the Animal Guides Tarot, which is absolutely beautiful,
Thanks.
is a deck that, well, why don't you describe it? You're the best one to describe it.
Well, the first thing that I want to say about Animal Guides is to give credit where credit is due. The illustrations for this deck are by Dan Craig.
Who I love. Dan, if you're listening, a little bit of a fan.
Dan, oh my God.
He's so good.
First of all, just to be clear, unfortunately, it is not that Dan Craig. It's not it's not that one. So I wouldn't have minded, but it is a different Dan Craig, but a brilliant artist, my favorite artist I've ever worked with. This is my third deck with him. And he is just a joy to work with. I love Dan. So kudos to him for the beautiful imagery. But Animal Guides Tarot Cards is a deck that basically is blending the whole concepts like we talked about, where we used to stay in our own lanes and now Radleigh can't help himself. I'm all over the road. My father was a race car driver. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But with Animal Guides, we're basically looking at the combination of the messages that come from animal spirits, totems, whatever you want to call them, and tarot, and putting those two things together. So it's a little bit like you and I did with our Angels and Auras deck, where we took peanut butter and chocolate and angels and auras, blended them together. Well, here we have Animal Guides, animal spirits, and we're blending it with tarot.
But there's something about this, Rad. I mean, not to repeat myself, I think every deck that you create is sweet, it's kind, it's opening, it's loving, but there's something in particular to this deck that takes it to a next level. Aww. There's an innocence there. There's every single card. I was trying to come up with the right adjectives because they're soft, but I thought, well, soft isn't the right word because they're profound and they're meaningful and they're deep. But there's something about the interpretations being through the lens of an animal that just comes across as so pure and so unconditionally loving. Was that the intention? Am I misreading it? There's just something that feels different.
Well, I don't think you're misreading it. And was it the intention? It's always my intention. But I think that with animals, you kindly said it's kind, it's loving, it's all of these things. Well, so are animals, and while there is a ferociousness to the animal kingdom sometimes, just like there is in every element of being on wacko doodle planet Earth, there is still behind it an innocence. I don't think that animals work from a place of vindictiveness or work from a place of evil intent, but they do work from a place of love and understanding at a level that we can't quite get. And so we can ascribe to it, but sometimes we as human beings fail. But the love of a dog, or the attentiveness of a cat, or the lilting dance of a bluebird, or these are things that lift the spirit and make us feel a sense of connection to nature, and therefore a connection to the divine.
The lilting dance of a bluebird.
The very nature of the animal kingdom brings us to that place.
I agree. So let's talk a little bit about your creative process. I mean, when you say things like the lilting dance of a bluebird, that I just want to pause there and run with that. So we all know traditional imagery when it comes to tarot cards. You've done this multiple times. Now you're doing it with animals. So I want to go through some of the cards, if you don't mind, and give us sort of a, where you came from with that. I pulled some of my favorites. So like card number 5, Unity, which depicts a polar bear with this sort of talk about the imagery because it's so beautiful and so sweet.
So in traditional tarot, this card is called the Hierophant. I changed the name not because there's something wrong with the word Hierophant. Nobody knows what a Hierophant is. And so I've changed it to Unity. In traditional tarot, this is a sort of a papal-like figure with two acolytes that are facing him. And so I copied that same sort of energy. We have a polar bear and two cubs that are looking at the polar bear in the same sort of angle that you would find in a Hierophant card in traditional tarot. Polar bears live a very solitary life. It's a very inward kind of life, an introspective kind of life. They very much love their cubs. They very much are into their nurturing and taking care of them. And so the Hierophant, aka Unity, is a card about that whole spiritual quest, that whole going within, and finding your tribe, finding people with which you can be in unity with. And so I matched up that polar bear energy with that particular card.
Now, traditionally, isn't there sort of a star and moon headdress behind him? And then here you've got sort of the starry sky in the background.
Right. You've got the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Right, exactly. So instead of that whole pomp and circumstance, we've got the majesty of nature itself.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is such a beautiful card. I so love this. Okay. So this one made me giggle. The next one, which is card number 15, which is Ego. Oh. I mean, I literally went through it and had an audible giggle and then had to stop and just sit with it.
Yeah. So Ego in traditional tarot is the devil card. And so if we ignore the traditional symbolism of a devil character who's chained to human beings and all of what that even implies, this is instead a Siamese cat sitting amongst a thing full of jewelry. But if you look closely, you'll notice that this Siamese cat is also chained as she is on a leash. And so the Ego card talks about materialism, being overly focused on things and stuff, addictions, things that we get caught up in, being in our egos. Siamese cats are really interesting because Siamese cats, first of all, they have a very distinct voice that almost sounds like a baby crying. So it's very whiny, like, yeah.
I want what I want.
I'm mine. But they also are not as safe from predators as other cats. The pale color does not camouflage well, and they don't have the nighttime vision that other cats have. And so they're more at risk, indicating fear, indicating anxiety and worry where maybe none is necessary, which is part of the meaning behind the Ego card.
So tell me about that, because that is a deep dive into a Siamese cat. So when I first looked at the imagery, I didn't know the history behind a Siamese cat, that they don't blend. So do you come up, you're like, okay, I'm going to do the death card. I'm thinking Siamese cat. Tell me your process for that, because I find that really interesting.
It was actually the other way around.
Okay.
So, and then it flipped. So what I did first was I made a list, because you know me in lists. I love a list.
You guys, if you're listening right now, Radleigh, by the end of this podcast, will have a spreadsheet of all of the topics that we talked about.
Something like
he will bring it up 4 years ago and say at minute and 38 seconds.
Remember when you said...
The first time I was on your show, on Hay House Radio Show, we couldn't remember the date. You had really logged every show and every topic. It's incredible. So yes, I do know your passion for lists.
Yes, so I like lists. So I started with a list of the animals that I was interested in. And then I did the deep dive. So it wouldn't have been that I went, okay, Ego, I need an animal.
Right.
It's Siamese cat. Oh, that sounds like Ego.
Okay.
So I did it that way. And then when I got to the end, it's like, okay, I've got these cards that don't have an animal. And so then I went the other direction. That's when, and I don't remember what they were anymore, but I'm just going to pull a card and go, okay, fine. So 9 of Earth. is ragdoll cat. We're stuck on cats today. So I would have been like Googling and doing research on what are cats that have these types of attributes.
Interesting.
That I can place on 9 of Earth.
Yeah.
So
it's
first
so
with
nuanced.
animals to cards, then back.
It's so nuanced. And so one of my other ones, my favorite ones is 10 of Water, which is so sweet. It's so
I
sweet.
love prairie dogs.
I do too.
So they are so cute. So 10 of Water is this card that talks about family and love and emotion and loving our children and community. And I love prairie dogs. I know that a lot of people think they're pests, but they're not. I mean, I don't think they are. But one of the things about prairie dogs is that they're very much into community. They're very much into their children. They hug. They literally hug, and they appear to be kissing, but they're not. They're touching teeth together, and that's how they identify each other.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, and so it looks like they're hugging and kissing, and community is everything. It's all about the prairie dog land kingdom.
There's something about Animal Guides Tarot that I think a lot of people with decks, if it portrays an image of a person, of a human being, they tend to project things onto them. Even our deck, like some people put in a review about one card of a specific celebrity that they think we specifically, which was not at all. No. This was just a person. And I think that's so interesting that we project this. So with animals, I do not have a prairie dog in my life yet. So there's no projection here. Or the sea turtle, the 3 of Fire. I mean, how joyful and peaceful. I literally had to sit and pause with this card because it's so stunning and so beautiful.
Well, you have a sheepadoodle, so you might have a prairie dog in your future.
Right.
But the sea turtle is actually interesting because they're ancient. And so 3 of Fire, part of what there's this story. Ace of Fire is this card of a brand new opportunity. 2 of Fire is it's going really well. I'm going to need some help. 3 of Fire is it's continuing to go really well. Now I've got to do long-term planning. Well, sea turtles are like 110 million years old, right? And so they have this energy of longevity. And when they have babies, they'll have like between 30 and 100 babies.
Wow.
They plant them in the sand, and then when they hatch, they have to slowly make their way to their water. Well, unfortunately, most of them don't make it because of predators. So there's this whole energy of ancient wisdom, but also the long term, looking at things from the standpoint of we will prevail over time. But, the thing, too, is that you mentioned the animals versus people. It was so freeing to do this deck.
Tell me about that.
So freeing because what are we at? 8 billion people on planet Earth or something, I think is where we're at. It's like, well, they're all different. And so how do you make it? Shut up. How do you make it? Any particular card resonate for 8 billion people? You can't.
Impossible.
It doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's going to take offense to it. Somebody's going to go, I don't like it. Somebody's going to go, you should have done this differently, blah, 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 blah. It's just going to happen. We do the best we can. We have a spreadsheet for diversity. That's how we do it. And we hope for the best. No, not necessary with the animal kingdom. I didn't have to worry about any of that.
Is it not necessary, or does the animal kingdom do it for you?
Like the animal kingdom does it for you.
Yeah.
But it's like nobody's basically looking at, I don't think anybody's looking, let's just go there and say, like, for example, my dogs are always in my card decks. Right.
Yes.
Always. So they're always in there. It's one of the things that people who follow me know. So it was Riley Grace of Pitter Patagonia's turn. Okay. So she is in this deck. She's on the world card. I am quickly trying to find it, and I didn't. So Riley is what's called a sable. Okay. She is a sable colored Sheltie. Shelties come in quite a few different colors. I think more colors than a lot of dogs breeds come in. And so she is a sable colored dog. So she's on there as a sable colored dog. Well, I also have another dog. Her name is Faith. Faith is a blue merle. Okay. So she's blue. It's this bluish gray and black and white. Nobody's looking at the picture of Riley and going, why is this dog sable and not a blue merle? And so, unfortunately, in the world we live in, human beings might look at somebody and go, why does this person look this way instead of looking that way? Well, the animal kingdom is full of diversity. For whatever reason, we as human beings don't seem to attribute those same kinds of prejudices to animals that we do to each other.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You know, it's interesting. There are so many elements that you do with a deck. So on each card, there is the name of the animal. There is a message on each card. You can go deeper into the guidebook with the message. But I agree with you. There is an approachability to this deck that I think is unique, completely standing out from your others. You've done it before, but there's something about this that just feels easy in the best sense of the word.
It was awesome. It was so much fun to not have to worry about any of those things and to just go crazy with the deck and let these beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous animals speak for themselves without any kind of like concerns about how the message could get confused.
Let me ask you about one more. This is my personal favorite. It's the Seven of Earth. It's the cow card.
Okay, so I'll tell you what this means, but then we're going to talk. Okay. So Seven of Earth is a fun card. Seven of Earth is, I call it the seeds well planted card. That's what I call it. And that's because it's a card that represents that the energies and the effort that we have put into something, whether it's emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is, are going to pay off. In the long term, they will pay off. I also call it the P card for patience. And so it requires a certain amount of patience. Yeah, nobody likes the P card or the P word. So the Seven of Earth is ruled by cows. And so cows, actually, if you think about it, they don't run around a lot. They move kind of slowly. They're a very old symbol of prosperity and abundance, but in the long term. And so that's why they're a part of this. But you have chosen a particularly curious group of cards. Can I ask, it's like, how did you pick those?
So this is sort of I don't want to go too deep into it, but this is my relationship with the tarot. If you say to me, what does the Three of Cups mean? I'm not going to remember it based on the title, the Three of Cups. Okay. When you start describing the Devil card and the chains and the Tower, I remember that. I've used them for years. So I'm an image guy. So I just sat with the deck because I buy everything you do. You're my friend, so I'm supporting you. So I sit with the deck and I go through it, and I just go through every card fairly quickly, and I stop and I pause with the ones that jump out at me. And I really try not to think about it at all. And at first I'm not asking a question. I'm not looking for information at all. It's just what image, like 15, the ego, that I started laughing. It just made me smile. The turtle made me feel relaxed. The Seven of Earth, the cow card, just felt really familiar to me. So thus far, this is, if I had to pick one card, this is my favorite. The way that his head is sort of tilted, he's not front and center in the card. If you guys are listening to the podcast, it's just this sweet sort of headshot, if you will, of a cow. And he looks so dear and so innocent and so lovely. And I thought, oh, that just really resonated with me.
See, likewise, I love this one. Awakening.
Let me see. Oh, it's upside down. Oh, the giraffe.
It's a giraffe.
Oh, you're right.
Right. And so the Awakening card is normally the Hanged Man, who is hanging upside down. So I chose an animal that's so tall for it to be able to look at us, it would have to bend over and be upside down.
Right.
right? And it makes so much sense for this card because giraffes are about the long view, seeing far ahead, taking a moment to pause to decide where we're going to go and where we want to be. So I love this one. And frankly, my favorite card is probably the cover.
Oh, the cover's gorgeous.
It's the High Priestess. And it was the first one that Dan did. And so in the High Priestess card, we have a woman that's sitting on a throne. Her dress is turning into water, into a river in front of her. There are two columns on either side of her, one darker and one lighter, and she has a rolled up scroll. And so here we have a white owl. They're very mysterious. They are very High Priestess energy. They're associated with Venus. And instead of the scroll being rolled up like hidden knowledge, I had him make it be unfurled where everyone can see that the knowledge is here. And the knowledge is literally tipping the emotions of the water.
It's so beautiful. Radleigh, I'm so proud of you. It's such an incredible deck. You did such a beautiful job.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, if you've never used a tarot deck before, I really think this is a great deck to get started with. I think this is a great deck to add to your collection if you want, just like we talked earlier, a completely new interpretation, new energy. It just feels like it opens doors to me. I think you do remarkable work. If you wanted to give one tip to people, what do you want people to get from the deck?
If the word tarot worries you, take a piece of tape and put it over it. And write the word oracle card deck. Yeah. Because if you love oracle cards, there is no reason you can't use this. It works exactly the same way. Do not be in any way intimidated by the word tarot. If you love tarot, here's a new take, a new bunch of symbolism, a new bunch of stuff for you to look at to go, wow, maybe I never stopped to think before that there is about a kind of energy to the Night of Water about having to kiss a lot of frogs.
Beautiful. All right, tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Oh, yeah. So RadleighValentine.com is where you will find everything that I have going on.
Good. You guys, this has been You Can Heal Your Life podcast. I've been your guest host, Dougall Fraser, with the amazing Radleigh Valentine. Please go check out Animal Guides Tarot. It is absolutely incredible. Go to RadleighValentine.com and bring a little love and joy to your life. Thanks for letting me do this, Rad.
Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure.